Well, I hope we can get started in just a little bit. And um, it seems like in the past we've had Spectrum glitches. This morning I had YouTube glitches. I went through the entire setup for the live stream and I clicked go live and it said error message. Actually, I can show you on the screen exactly what it showed me. It just seems like technology is not doing well these days. There it is right there. Something went wrong. Try again. It did that 3 times. So, ah, all right. Well, we hopefully will have a glitch-free live stream. I'm hoping a little bit more ragtime because we're looking at a machine that was introduced in 1933 at the Chicago World's Fair, the Singer Featherweight 221, a debut that really marked the theme of that Chicago World's Fair, which was Century of Progress. And so, if you didn't know that, you can Google Chicago World's Fair 1933 Century of Progress, learn more about that event where millions upon millions of people from around the world came together in Chicago to celebrate all of the progress developmentally with products and services, and you name it, they had it, automobiles. So, we're going to be checking out Sandy's Featherweight today, which came to the workshop with a lot of challenges. I even called Susie out and had her try to turn the balance wheel, which should have been a two-finger job. And it was like a two-hand, 2 foot, and maybe a small car job. It had a lot of gumming up and some mechanical issues. So I think she's going to do well today. And yeah, let's get ready to roll forward with no technical difficulties, I hope. All right, I'm going to get us rolling here. So this machine is out of London. Now, if that's all I say, you'll be spinning your wheels thinking, did we get another international shipment? Because we've gotten machines from all around the world. And back in Oconto, I had a machine shipped to me from London, England. You probably remember that one. It was a Swedish beauty that was requiring voltage that I didn't have. And that's when I learned about the step-up inverters that allow you to take US voltage and bump it all the way up to 250 volts. And if you've never heard of that before, I'll show you exactly what it looks like. And you can buy these on Amazon. I'm sure you can buy them on eBay. I got this one on eBay. And if you buy an inverter so that, let's say you are on an eBay site or another site and you fall in love with a European machine and it's wired up for European voltage. So it's going to need somewhere probably between 220 volts to 250 volts. Make sure you get an inverter step up, or a step up, step down inverter, I guess is the proper way to say it, that has a rating of at least 200 watts, because the average sewing machine is going to draw somewhere between 125 to about 175 watts. Now, there might be exceptions to that where they draw just a wee bit more, especially if you got into using a model that had a larger, like a servo motor. Then you would definitely need a step up, step down inverter that would generate a lot more juice than this one. But the average machine, like a Featherweight, a Swedish beauty, and even this other machine that belongs to Sandy as well, which is a more contemporary Swedish beauty, Husqvarna Viking Opal 690Q. And this is the next machine that I'm going to be finishing up for Sandy from London, Kentucky, not London, England. This will be a fun one to present. And it's got a buku number of stitches. Whereas the Featherweight I'm going to be presenting today is the Supreme Straight Stitch Sewing Machine. So you can see here, Sandy has really gotten the best of both worlds. She's gotten a more contemporary Swedish beauty with a bazillion stitches, and then she got her beloved Featherweight 221. And again, if you don't know the history of the Featherweight 221, it was debuted at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. 1933 was really a century of progress, as the theme told. And the most beautiful girls of the day, the most beautiful ladies of the day, were walking around the Singer booth and walking probably away from the Singer booth as well, carrying machines just like this one, like pizza pies. They were holding them up like this and parading around, highlighting the fact that Singer had developed in that century of progress a machine that would sew the stitches off of you and just do a brilliant job. And it only weighed 11 pounds. It only weighed 11 pounds. And so really quite a progressive step. You know, other tiny mini type little machines as well. This really was quite a spectacular development for Singer. So we're checking this machine out today, putting it through the paces, and and seeing how this this little mighty mite, this little petite powerhouse, as I refer to the Singer Featherweights, the princess of Singers, does sewing through a wide variety of sew-offs. We're going to be doing everything from velvet to leather, and the list goes on. But I'm going to get a little drink of tea, get acquainted with some new folks. It looks like the audience is starting to step up a little bit, and we've got a great showing today to highlight this spectacular, historic Singer Featherweight 221. That didn't sound much like ragtime, but that's okay. Music is music, right? So I'd like your help with something. Susie came out to the workshop because I always love to look up a machine by serial number, right? And I tried looking up this machine by serial number, and I ran into a little bit of a wall. And so I called Susie out and I said, "Hun, look at this. Susie just had cataract surgery and she's got eagle eyes now. She's got better vision than I do now, quite honestly." So I called her now. I said, "Hun, would you look at this and tell me if I'm reading it right? The serial number for this featherweight And she wrote it down and she said, no, that's right. She went back into another part of our space and looked it up. And she said, it doesn't make any sense. I'm coming up with a model other than a featherweight. I'm not coming up with a featherweight. So I'm going to tilt this featherweight back and let all of you get a glimpse at the serial number. And then would you help us in also trying to look it up? It doesn't seem to match up well, at least not on ISMAX, the international sewing site that we go to look up serial numbers for Singer. Maybe you'll be able to help us figure it out. And I did a little bit of pragmatic thinking on how they might have listed it. Normally, they list the serial numbers sequentially, but there was a grouping out of sequence that would have covered the featherweight. Any rate, let me tilt this girl back and you can look at that serial number and see if you can help us out, okay? I'm going to go ahead and unplug it. And I've got this as a little buffer so that the bed doesn't get damaged. Tilt her back like this. And if you didn't know it, the serial number for featherweight is right here on the left bottom bedside of the machine. Let me see if I can get real close. And I'm going to check my laptop screen so that I can tell that you'll be able to see it. Let me get a little bit closer. It's kind of hard to see. Matter of fact, I'll tilt the camera a little bit, see if that helps. So if you're seeing it the same way that Susie and I did, it looks like it's AF 932901, I believe, right? I almost started questioning if the F was an E, but if you look it up as AE instead of AF, you're also scratching your head as to what is the birth date of this machine. So I'll be interested to see what all of you come up with, because as Susie and I tried to reconcile the birth date of this princess of singers that belongs to Sandy, we were running into some obstacles with at least the way it's presented on ISMAX. Maybe ISMAC catalog this one out of sequence a little bit. Hopefully we can figure it out. But in the meantime, we're going to put whatever the birth date of this girl is, we're going to try to put her to work and show off the strength of this petite powerhouse. She really is quite a brute of a gal. She's kind of a brawler. And I may leave our LED light off during this live stream just so that we don't get that glare. But you can pretty much tell by the scrolling on the faceplate that this is an earlier machine in that introduction of Singers. And if you don't know about the production period of the Singers, the Featherweight was made from 1933. That was the debut, right around until 1969. So when they stopped production on this petite powerhouse, the Featherweight 221, it was 1969. So I would have been about 4 years old. I was about 4 years old when this machine went out of production for Singer. And by that time, they had produced right around 3.5 million of these Featherweight 221s. And they weren't just made in the US, they were made in Canada, they were made in England, and there may have been some other production locations that I'm not mentioning. So if anyone wants to do a little bit of due diligence and research, where did they make the Featherweight 221? You may come up with some other locations as well. It's possible they may have made some over in Australia, but I know England and Canada and the US for sure. So, but see if you can look up this on Ismax or whatever site you use to look up serial numbers for Singer and see if you can help us out. The closest date that I came up with, if it was out of sequence, the closest date that I came up with it out of sequence and not cataloged properly, would have been July 1st, 1941. July 1st, 1941, based on the serial number AF932901, but it's muddled. So I'm not sure that that's 100% correct. But if you came up with July 1st, 1941, and it would have been a production group size, very, very, very small, right around 1,749 machines made. 1,749 machines made. So if that information is correct, and I'm not certifying it based on what Ismax presented, this is an incredibly, incredibly rare featherweight based on the production group size. It would have come out about 13 years after the featherweight was introduced. So a little bit more than a decade after they rolled this machine out at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. This machine that belongs to Sandy from London, Kentucky, not London, England, from London, Kentucky, would have been born at the Singer plant. And it would have been born in Elizabethport, New Jersey. Elizabethport, New Jersey. So see what you come up with. Share it in the live chat if you'd be so kind. Susie and I were just a little bit bemused, to use a $1.25 word. We were a little bit puzzled in trying to catalog and date this particular machine. It shouldn't be that difficult, but we both ran into a little bit of walls. We kept coming up with a class 15. Did anyone else come up with a class 15 machine? Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But sometimes that happens. Sometimes they muddle things up a little bit, and then it makes it difficult for all of us to know, what's the birth date of this machine. But without someone else supplying additional information that would mitigate this, I'm going to say for now, uncertified, absolutely sure, July 1st, 1941, and 1,749 of these machines were made. Very, very, very small production group size for Singer. Very small. Yeah. Teresa's also finding a class 15 as well. Isn't it weird? It's totally weird. It's totally, totally weird. So the other thing I'll mention real quick is while I was back in Oconto, my friends at Bay Impressions, Carly and Laurel, printed a bunch of these oversized owner's manuals. They're huge. They're absolutely huge. And they allow you to see the particulars of the manual contents much easier than the original one, which is a little bit less than half this size. This manual that I had reprinted is about 8.25 inches by, let's see here, by about 5 inches. So it's about 8 by 5. So if you own a featherweight and you're saying, my manual, my eyes are getting older, like all of us are getting older, and I'm having trouble reading my teeny tiny little manual to remind myself about, okay, which way does the flat side face on the featherweight? How do I thread the featherweight? I've got a couple of these, and if someone comes up with a really good answer as far as why in heaven's name is this machine showing up as a class 15 on Ismax, which generally is a very reliable source for looking up Singer machines. If you come up with a really good insight and explanation, I'll see if I can dig some of these extra oversized ones, and Susie and I will mail you one. And that way you don't have to strain your eyes. You go through this meal And it's so easy to see the pictures. It's so easy to read the contents of this, and to be able to do some good DIY stuff on the machine as well. So I'm going to set it to the side for right now, and we'll continue rolling forward while we have YouTube working and while we have Spectrum working, which has become a novelty now instead of an expected thing. It's kind of blah, frustrating. But at any rate, let me do this. Let me see if I can get this machine set up with our first sew off. That way, at least if we lose video or something like that, at least we've done a sew off on Sandy's machine, right? I'll set us up with some pink material, which we don't see very often. And we'll lay down a nice straight stitch with this little petite powerhouse. I should also tell you, if I can find my glasses, where are they? I'm going to show you in the manual exactly where the threading is, where the needle orientation is, and that way you'll know, and also setting up the bobbin as well. But I love this manual. Laurel and Carly did a great job of producing it for me. They did a lot of work to help me out, even with our fundraisers, like the golden tickets. Remember the golden tickets? That's kind of how Susie and I met. That's part of our love story. Is Susie ended up contributing to help out the Humane Society in Oconto, Wisconsin, and she ended up being one of those rare people that got a golden ticket. Well, that golden ticket and all the other stuff around that campaign to help out that fundraiser, they were produced at Bay Impressions in Oconto, Wisconsin. Yeah, there's one of the original Featherweight tables. That's kind of cool, huh? I know Susie has a Featherweight table as well. It's not quite like this. It was a remake. Yeah, great manual, great manual. So we'll look at this first of all. This is the threading of the Featherweight for winding a bobbin. I'll just kind of show it to you like this. You basically come off the spool, you go through that thread guide right there, and then you come across the front of the machine through this tensioner, and then you come back up to your bobbin right here. So you kind of go rip, 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 like that to wind a bobbin. Don't miss that, because otherwise it'll be nasty for you. Here's our bobbin orientation. So you're going to hold your bobbin in your left hand, and then you're going to hold, you're going to hold your bobbin case in your left hand, and then you're going to hold your bobbin in your right with the thread over the top, and then slide her in and then thread her through the bobbin case to get her all set, kind of like it shows here in the pictures on page 10 in the manual. And it would be the same page 10 in that little mini manual that Singer produced. This is just a lot easier to see. So that means as this machine is operating, that bobbin is going to be turning clockwise. So that's an easy way to check it. If you look at the bobbin down here, you can see the bobbin right down there. As that bobbin is operating, it'll be turning clockwise like this. And as you're putting this bobbin in, just to give you a quick little tip, a little DIY tip, if you own a Featherweight and you've ever tried putting your bobbin case in and it kind of pushes in, but it kind of bounces back at you, it doesn't snap in straight away, that's going to be an issue of where your take-up arm is. Right now, you can see our take-up arm on the machine. If I change my camera angle, right now you can see our take-up arm on the machine is at a very low position. Whenever you're putting your bobbin case in your Featherweight, you want to make sure that your take-up arm is at the highest position, and then it will snap in just like a breeze. If you have your take-up arm low like this, you can see our needle isn't down blocking the bobbin case going in, but because of the orientation of the hook, and this has a rotary hook system, not an oscillating hook system like some of the recent machines that we presented here. But the orientation of the hook will make it difficult to get that bobbin case to go in. So you simply rotate your take-up arm like I'm doing right now. Rotate, 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 rotate. Get that bobbin, get that take-up arm at the highest position like you can see it is right now, and then try sliding your bobbin case in. It will slide in just like a hot knife through butter. No problem at all. So many of you have probably experienced that. I've experienced that where I'm casual in getting the machine set up after all the workshop magic, after all the servicing. I wind that bobbin, I go to try to slide that bobbin case in, and it won't go in. And I'm like, the needle's not blocking it, because that can happen sometimes where you're not paying attention and your needle will be down in the raceway, blocking that bobbin case from going in. Some of you have done that. I know you have. I know you've done that if you're honest and you admit it. Raise your hand right now. Raise your hand. I know you've done it. But the other trick is getting that take-up arm in the right spot. So try that at home. Try that in your sewing suite, in your sewing space. If you're having trouble getting that bobbin case in. The other thing that can cause a difficulty sometimes is if you buy an aftermarket bobbin for the Featherweight. Some of them are a little bit wider than the original ones, and then you'll have difficulty snapping it into the raceway because it's too bulky. So that's another thing you need to look out for. It's always best to have original Featherweight bobbins like these in here in my little box. I've got original tensioners for the Featherweight. I've got original bobbin cases like this. And they do have a lot of aftermarket bobbin cases as well. You have to watch out for those. Some of them work pretty good. Some of them don't work so good. And you're going to know if it's an original because it's going to have that original Singer stamp on it. The company that made everything for Singer, the Semantics or whatever they're called, they're the ones that made the original bobbin cases, and they're going to do real well. This is an aftermarket one that I had issues with. You can see it doesn't have that stamp on it. I think you can see that. And I marked it bad. It's a bad bobbin case. So, but I hope those little tips, those little DIY tips help you out so you can enjoy your Featherweight, whether it's a 221 or if you're incredibly fortunate, like Susie and some of you others that are in the audience, you might have a 222K, the convertible Featherweight that has a free arm that comes off on it. I've shown that on this channel. Matter of fact, our very dear friend who we love, Emma from Florida, was the first one to send me a 222K. I had never been able to present a 222K on this channel because they're so rare. They're so hard to come by. And I later acquired another one that I sold to a lovely lady from Indiana that is in Indiana. She's a pastor's wife, and she traveled all the way to Wisconsin to collect up that machine and to take it back. Wait, no, I'm wrong. She's not from Indiana. She's from Texas. She's from Texas. They drove all the way from Texas up to Wisconsin to meet me, and then for me to prepare that 222K for them. But Susie's got a 222K. We'll have to pull that out sometime and let Susie do some sewing on it for you in her sewing suite. You've already gotten a glimpse of her sewing suite, and I think she would enjoy doing that. I serviced that Featherweight for her along with her other Featherweights back in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. So now you know a couple of tips and tricks with the Featherweight. Now we're going to look at that needle. That needle's a little bit tricky on the Featherweight. We're always used to putting the flat side to the right towards the pillar, right? We always put that flat side on most Singers to the right. On the Featherweight, you've got to put that flat side to the left. So the flat side of the needle is going to be to the left when you slide it in. And then you're going to be, after you thread this machine, you're going to be threading that needle from right to left. Yeah, right to left. I think I got that right. Haha. Yes, I did. So the threading on the Featherweight can throw people off a little bit. Getting that needle orientated correctly with the flat side to the left. Getting that threading when you get all the way down to the needle from right to left. And other than that, the threading on the machine is pretty doggone easy. It's pretty doggone easy. Yeah, seeing if I missed anything else. The only other thing that's a little bit tricky, I wouldn't say it's grossly tricky on the Featherweight, is when you thread the machine, you come off the top, you go through this thread guide, you make sure your presser foot lever is up, You draw yourself through the tension discs like this, and then you have to draw that take-up spring up so that it seats that thread in that little part of the upper tension right here. It kind of seats in there. If I rotate you'll see that take-up spring dropping back down, and you'll notice right here where that thread is seated in that little notch. And that only happens when you're threading it by drawing that take-up spring up a little bit further and then getting that thread to seat in that little notch right there. Can you see that? I hope you can. And then the rest of it's pretty easy. You draw that thread up behind this thread guide. You thread the take-up arm from right to left. You go through this thread guide right there on the faceplate. You go through another thread guide right here, just above the needle. And then you have another thread guide right here at the top of the needle. You've got to thread it through there as well. And then you finally thread that needle from right to left. Okay? Yeah, so all little basic things, but sometimes when we have problems with our machines, it's because we've gotten too casual and we've missed a basic thing. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had a machine for 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, and you go to sew with it after you set it up and you're having problems, and you circle back and you look at the basics and you go, holy cow, I just misthreaded this machine that I've been using for 3, 4, 5 decades. So there's nothing wrong with relaxing with your machine. That's the way it should be. But you always focus on the basics and make sure you're not missing something obvious, right? Make sure you're not missing something obvious. So let's do our first sew off finally on Sandy's Featherweight. I'm going to do it on this pink material. Oops, I've got my needle down just a little bit there. I hope I didn't just bend the needle. See, again, back to the basics, back to the basics. And I've got my stitch length set on the longest setting right now. If you look at this Featherweight, you see our stitch length selector right here. I've got it all the way down at about 6 stitches per inch. If I bring it all the way up to, say, right about there, I'm going to be doing a satin stitch, an ultra satin stitch, right around 25 to 30 stitches per inch. If I go all the way up on this Featherweight, I'm going to be sewing in reverse. So those are some of the basics that are really important. Now, the beauty of the way the Featherweight is set up is on some of the machines, if you shut off the power switch, which is right here, you're not going to be able to sew. But the way the Featherweight is wired, we can sew even with that light off. So if that LED light, I added an LED light to Sandy's machine, if that LED light gives our camera trouble, I'm going to click that light off and we can still go through the various sew-offs we got. Okay? Yeah. So let's give this a go. You can listen to this machine. Again, when she came into the workshop, the balance wheel would barely turn. Susie tried to turn it. She couldn't do it. It just wouldn't budge. But she's a happy girl now. And even though she only has a 0.4 amp motor, she's got a lot of get up and go. A lot of get up and go. All right, let's give this a try. We'll do our first sew off. We'll do a long stitch. We'll do a shorter stitch. And then we'll jump into some of these other materials that I have prepared. And Susie has really been battling the gnats for me. One of you had suggested treating the drains. And when you Google it, some people say, pour bleach down your drain, pour this down the drain. None of that stuff seemed to really do a really good job. And then we said, I said to Susie, I wonder if fruit flies can live in a septic system. And so Susie Googled, can fruit flies live in a septic system? The answer is absolutely yes. And some very helpful person had said, pour boiling water, boil water and pour boiling water down all your drains. Rolling boiling water down your drains. And that has really, really put a dent in these fruit flies. I've got one in here right now that's trying to say, hey, I want to be on camera. I'd like to be on camera. I'm a fruit fly, but I'd like to be on camera. And I'm going to catch him eventually. You'll hear a swat and a crunch. You won't hear a crunch. They don't crunch. But yeah, Susie has done a brilliant job, and I appreciate everyone's suggestion of looking at the drains because that is apparently where they hang out. But if you live out in the country, live up in the mountains like we do, and you've got a septic system, you've tried everything else, and the fruit flies keep tormenting you, try boiling water. And Susie can type in the live chat, how often do you do it? When do you do it? Blah, 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 blah. And that way, that'll be a resource to people that are also being tormented by these little winged menaces from hell. I mean, they're menaces from hell. They just are. They're awful. Okay, let's go through and do our first sew off. How long have I been blah, blah, blah? 43 minutes and we haven't even sewed on this machine yet. Daggone it, Scott. What's wrong with you, buddy? All right, here we go. Sandy's Featherweight doing a long straight stitch. Let's do this one first on this pink material. I think I've got my foot. Get my foot on that little button. Oh, I'm going backwards. Ha! I forgot to bring my stitch length selector back down. So the reverse works on this machine. Look at that. Aha. Where's my clips? Oh, see that? The fruit flies just throw me off my game. Daggone it. I was trying to sew backwards. I was back tacking before I started sewing. All right, let me pull that thread out. We'll try this again. Ah! Susie, help. The fruit flies are getting me. Ah! All right. And I'll give you one other tip real quick. I'm going to give you one other tip. I haven't done this yet. I haven't done it yet for Sandy's machine. But right now, if you look at the presser foot control right up here, you can see I've got it screwed down quite a ways. And yet when I lift the presser foot lever, it's got good pressure for most sewing, but it's not quite as strong as it should be. I've shown you before where you might have to, let me show you real quick. I know I've got them in here somewhere. Where did I put them all? I'm looking for my springs right now. Ah, found them. Okay. So this is not an original spring for a featherweight, right? But over time, as you're using that presser foot, it compresses that spring. It compresses that spring, and it doesn't spring back the way it's supposed to. In other words, it becomes a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter, kind of like us as we get older, right? As we get older, we get shorter and shorter, don't we? Most of us do. And so what you have to do is you have to stretch that spring out. Now, an original featherweight spring, I may not be able to do it with my hand, but I think I can do it on this spring just to demonstrate. And what I usually do is I grab a couple of screwdrivers like this, grab a couple of screwdrivers, and I will slide one screwdriver in one end of the spring over here, and I'll slide the other screw. There goes that fruit fly. Doggone it. I think he's got a knife. He's got a knife. So you grab the spring like this with two screwdrivers. You kind of slide them through the spring as best as you're able, and then you elongate that spring like this to stretch it out. And it may take several tries, but that spring eventually you'll gain probably about 3 to 5 millimeters on it, and then you'll slide it back into that well again. And the way you get the spring out, you take off the faceplate on the featherweight, you unscrew your presser foot control completely. Now there's a small little ring. There's a small little ring right on the other side of this that seats on top of that spring to depress it evenly, right? So when you take this out, just be careful that you don't lose that little, it's like a little washer that sets on top of the presser foot bar, and then it presses that spring down evenly. So you take the faceplate off, you take this out, watch for that little washer, and then you just work that spring completely out of that presser foot bar. It'll just slide out of the top of here. And then you'll take 2 screwdrivers if you need to. You'll stretch that spring, and then you won't have to crank that presser foot pressure down as far to get the same result. You'll just kind of stretch it like this. And eventually it'll get a little bit longer. You slide her back into position, and then you'll be a lot happier with your sewing. You'll have a lot better presser foot pressure. I hope that helps a little bit. I'm going to set my little spring over here. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to sew forward this time just as a novelty. Let's see if I can rotate this a little bit. All right, so we're going to try this again on Sandy's machine. We're going to do a long straight stitch. I'll get my caliper. We'll see how many stitches per inch we're getting. All right, here we go. Finally. Aha. It is such a challenge to have big feet sometimes. It is. A featherweight just has a sweet sound, doesn't it? I hope you can hear that on the microphone. It just got a very, very sweet sound. Yeah, very, very nice. Very nice. And I'm going to challenge our featherweight enthusiasts. A number of you in the audience, I'm sure, own featherweights. You'll hear people in certain circles on Facebook, Etsy, Pinterest, blah, 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 talking about the featherweight generating the perfect stitch. I've said it to you before on this channel, there is no such thing as the perfect stitch. It can always be better. It can always be better. So I'm gonna make one adjustment straight away. I'm looking at this. We got some really good looking stitching, but I'm just gonna very, very slightly bump up our upper tension. We're at right around 5. If you can see that, I'm going to go up just a little bit above 5. Now, another tip for you that I'll share with you real quick. In the manual, it shows you how to disassemble the upper tension and to clean it and then to reinstall it and everything like that. When you finally get to the final phase of you're going to screw this little piece on right here, you've got to depress this little insert that has the numbers on it a little bit. I've shown this to you before, and you've got to turn that because there's a little pin on here that has to seat into that little plate that has the numbers. If you turn this too far in, you're not going to be able to get the full range all the way up to 9 on the upper tension. And it's going to create other issues for you as well. You've got to calibrate it, which means when you're putting this final piece on and you're pushing this little plate on that has the spring pushing on the other side of it, you've got to turn this about 2.5 times and then release this little plate, and then you'll hear it snap into place. But don't turn this too far, or you're going to end up losing the full range of that upper tension, and you're probably going to be on about 2 or 3 instead of in the 5 to 6 range, which is a real nice place to be. I hope that makes sense. I'll see if I can show that to you on another live stream, kind of remind you of how to take it apart, how to put it back together, how to calibrate it. And that way you'll have success with it. But upper tensions are so critical. You've got to do it right. And I read through the book instructions, and it doesn't talk about calibrating it. So I wanted to mention that if you decide to take it on yourself as a DIY, just be careful. Be careful, and don't crank this in too far. Don't crank it in too far. You're going to lose that range going all the way up to 9. Let me do a shorter stitch now, and then we'll look at both of these stitches side by side. We'll do some measurements on them as well. So I'm going to adjust my stitch length, not to the satin stage. We'll go to right around 10 to 12 stitches per inch, right about there, I think. Just raised it up just a little bit, probably around 10 to 12 stitches per inch, somewhere in that range. Let's give this a go. All right, take-up arm is all the way up. All right, here we go. All right, we'll stop right there. Give our thread a clip. Let me grab my caliper and we'll take a look at these stitches and actually see how we did as far as number of stitches per inch. And if you're one of those individuals that does not have a caliper, whether it's an electronic caliper or a mechanical one like this, I would strongly encourage you to get one. That way, if you buy aftermarket bobbins, you can measure them to see how close they are in relation to the original bobbins for your machine. It doesn't have to be a featherweight. It could be any machine. You want to make sure that you have one of these tools, but it's also a great way to see how your machine is doing from a presser foot standpoint and a feed dog standpoint in measuring the stitches per inch. Because if we set it at the longest setting, we should be getting around 6 to 7 stitches per inch. If we adjust that stitch length to around 10 to 12, we should be getting around 10 to 12 stitches per inch. There may be a slight variance to that because as machines age, the mechanics do allow a little bit of slippage. And even with workshop magic, those parts as they wear, they're not going to be quite as exact as they might have been when they were first made in the factory. But let's just do a measurement, see how we did. So I'm going to set this at 1 inch. I'll set our caliper at right about 1 inch. There we go. Whoops. I had 1 inch and then I lost it. I better put my thumb there and kind of hold it. Okay, so we'll do the long stitch first. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. Yeah, it's almost 6, but it's closer to 7 stitches per inch on the long stitch. So that's really quite good for a machine that we assume was made right around 1941. Now I'm going to do the measurement on this one where I set that stitch length right around 10 to 12 stitches per inch. We'll see how we did on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches per inch is what we're getting on the short stitch. So the workshop magic and all of the steps I took this machine through, I sent Sandy just a bazillion pictures of the progress shots of me servicing the machine, and she was in awe that the machine was, how would I put it? That the machine was a dirty little girl. She was a dirty little girl. I mean, there was crud, there was buildup, there was gook. She was a mess. So she really needed that spa day and some workshop magic to get back to a point where she is sewing so well and so quiet. But let's take a look at these stitches right now. Let's go to that step. So here's our top stitching first on the straight stitching we did on this 100% cotton with a stiffener in between. This is basically a fat quarter. Trying to look at my screen here. I've got to adjust my laptop screen. I can't see what you guys are seeing. Hold on a second. So there's our top stitching. Really, really quite lovely. Beautiful top stitching. Here's our lock stitching on the back. And you remember I made that slight adjustment to the upper tension. I bumped it up just slightly. This stitching over here on the long stitch is really quite nice. It's quite nice. But like I say, there's no such thing as a perfect stitch. We can always make it better. So that's what I try to do by making that adjustment. So let me see if I can get closer, let you look at the lock stitching. Yeah, really quite nice. So beautiful top stitching. There it is. You can't look across the room with reading glasses on. Everything's blurry. Yeah, some beautiful top stitching. And some beautiful lock stitching as well. Yeah, very, very nice. So that's our cotton sew off. That's our cotton sew off. Let's go ahead and move into some of these other materials. I'm going to put on a little bit of interlude music, and I'm also I really don't pay attention a lot. Susie will attest to this. Um, I'm not a big numbers guy, so I don't really pay attention to how big our audiences are. We could have we've done live. Actually, we did premieres back in the day. We did premieres back in the day when I was first beginning to build this channel, where we would have like 5 or 6 people in the audience. 5 or 6 people. I really didn't care because I figured that those 5 or 6 people were very important and they were there for a reason. And I was grateful for them taking time to join me as I was beginning to build this channel. And so now we don't have 5 or 6 people. We sometimes have 5 or 600 people. But it's so encouraging. It's so fun to have a big audience like this. So as you are in the audience and you feel comfortable stepping out into the live chat, we would love to get to know you. We would love to learn more about your sewing, your experience, the machines you have, and all of that. And if you're in the audience right now and you haven't taken a moment to click like yet, I'm guessing I haven't looked at the live chat, but I'm guessing that probably Susie, maybe Teresa, and others on the leadership team have encouraged you, if you're in the audience, to click like. It helps us with our algorithms or our blah 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 or something like that. The more likes we have, the bigger audience we have, it tends to get higher visibility. And then people can benefit from the things that we share during a live stream or a premiere. So when you have a chance, if you don't mind, while we're taking a little intermission here, so I can drink some tea and eat some granola bar, take a second and click like if you would. I think we have about 300 or so likes right now. And if you'd be willing to do that, we certainly would be grateful for that. All right, let me put on a little bit more music to celebrate our century of progress. We're doing a flashback to 1933 when the featherweight was first introduced at the Chicago World's Fair. And the theme of that Chicago World's Fair was Century of Progress. Century of Progress. All right, a little bit more music, and then we'll jump into some more sew-offs. All right, I'm going to pause this music a little bit as we jump into some more sewings. And I just figured I would go to some hardened leather right away. A lot of people, when they think about the featherweight, whether it's a 221, 22-1, or the 222K, all of those machines have nearly identical mechanics. They have the identical size motor, zero point 0.4 amps. Now, zero point 0.4 amps, right away, when you think about comparing it to, say, a Swedish Beauty that has a 1 amp or a 1.5 amp, or even some of the other Japanese machines that have some of those larger motors, you think that you have to have a large motor in order to sew leather. That simply isn't true. You need to have a well-tuned machine, just like tuning, a tool and getting a tool ready for a job. You've got to get that machine running so that any obstacle that holds it back. Again, Susie and I tried turning the balance wheel on this featherweight when it came into the workshop. I could barely turn it, and I've got strong hands, and Susie could hardly get it to budge. So whenever you have that resistance, whether the belt has been tightened in properly, whether it's grunge and dirt and filth that's holding all the mechanics back, whatever it is that's holding the machine back, you've got to eliminate each and every one of those things. And that's why, if you go to a sewing vac, if you go to a local sewing center and get your featherweight service there, they're going to spend about 30 to 45 minutes on that machine, and they're going to miss 80% of those areas of resistance that will allow that machine to shine and allow that featherweight to flex its little muscles and just amaze you with what it can do. So we're going to be trying to sew this hardened leather. This is the thick of thick, and it's probably about 3 to 4 ounces of leather. I've done more than this on featherweights before. If you go to the playlist for the Featherweight 221 on this channel, you're going to see me sewing things on a featherweight that will just make your jaw drop, quite honestly. But these little petite powerhouses, if they're serviced like workshop magic level, they will amaze you in what they can do, truly. So let's see if we can put this hardened leather, which is a very dense cowhide type leather, to work, and see if we can lay down some really good looking stitching on this leather as well. Now, if it has a slight, I'm just going to predict something. If it has a slight little tilt or a slight little cant to some of the stitching, take into account that our setup is not a leather needle. We've got a universal 9014 Schmetz needle, which is kind of our go-to needle. This needle right here. And if you don't know it, the universal needle does not have a sharp point on the end of it. It's got a slightly rounded point. And that's because the universal needle is designed to go through woven materials, woolen materials, and that sort of thing. And it's designed to kind of sweep through that material without damaging it. So we're literally going to be punching through this leather. We're not going to be slicing through it like with a leather needle. We're going to be punching through it. And all we're going to have is that 0.4 amp motor to do it. But I went through that motor too, and that motor's, yeah, she's got some get up and go now. She's got some get up and go. All right, let's try this leather, see how we do. And yes, I'm going to sew forward, you smart Alex. Ha ha! I'll sew forward, I will. I promise. All right, let's give this leather a try. Here we go. How's my angle right now? Bring that down a little bit. Bring this over here. There we go. All right. Let's see how we do. Nice and slow. Aha! Trying to get my big old size 11 on that little pedal. You can't see it on camera, but the featherweights traditionally come with a Bakelite style pedal. It's going to have that little button on it. Try putting a size 11, size 12 shoe on that little button. It's fun. It's fun, yeah, to say the least. So here's our hardened leather. This kind of stuff you would use, in equestrian type stuff, reins and other things that go with horses. Teresa is quite a horse expert, Teresa and Tim. So they know what I'm talking about. That's a real special leather that's used when you're attaching it to the horses in some way, the reins, the bridle, other things like that. It's real strong, heavy leather. But our little featherweight just treated it like it was kind of a lightweight sew-off. Take a look at this. I can't see. Where's my screen? Where's my screen? There it is. Try to go like this, maybe. There we go. Oh, that's my compressor. Hold on. My air compressor. Boy, that was unexpected. That was kind of fun. Ah! All right. Let's take a look at the stitch again. I just shut the air compressor off so it won't come on again. You know what? Going through leather like this, hardened leather with a universal needle and getting these results. Wow. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. The spacing, the formation of the stitch, there's no tilting. I kind of predicted wrong, didn't I? I thought there would be some tilting on the stitch because we're using that universal needle, but it just laid down some drop dead gorgeous stitches with Sandy's machine. Beautiful stitching. Here's our lock stitching on the back. Let's look at it like this first. It's our lock stitching. You can see it on that real dense, tight nap. And there you'll see a little bit of tilting. If you look at the stitches, you'll see a little bit of a tilt on that stitch. That's a product of the needle we're using and also the fact that we would have to bump up our upper tension maybe a little bit higher. Waiting for our camera to focus here. We try it like this. See if it'll focus on it now. There we go. So this featherweight can sew leather. It can sew even hardened leather, which is one of the toughest leathers to get through, and still lay down some stitching that looks really good. Now we could put a leather needle in here, a 9014 leather needle or a 100-16 needle. I wouldn't recommend putting say a 110 size 18 needle in a featherweight. It's a little bit too bulky of a needle. And with the rotary hook system, if there's a little bit of a leg or a pull on that thread, you may end up hitting that hook with the needle and damaging your hook on the featherweight. You don't want to do that. So I wouldn't recommend a needle larger than say a 100 size 16 needle. But really for most purposes for featherweight sewing, a size 90-14 is going to pretty much get the job done very nicely. So some really good looking stitching. This again is our lock stitching on the back of the material. Kind of trying to show it to you, but I can't see if my camera is focusing on it or not. At any rate, lovely, lovely stitching. Blah, blah, blah. Really, really nice looking stitching. And again, if you look at the side, that's some pretty thick leather. Yeah. Okay, let me throw the leather to the side. Let me throw the leather to the side. Now, any of you that have featherweights or really any of the other Singer machines, you'll notice when you plug in your power supply that the little pins that stick out that supply that electricity to the machine have a little cut, a little flare in the middle of them. And over time, if you've ever had it happen, when you slide your power cord in on one of those machines, it's not tight. It kind of is loose. It might even pull free of the machine. And it's incredibly frustrating. I know it can be frustrating. So to give you a quick little tip, I'm going to go ahead and unplug Sandy's machine again. And pick up this 11-pound wonder and just show you kind of what I'm talking about. So as we're looking at the plug-in point for the power, you'll see that there's a little cut in the copper that is the connections right here. There's a little cut in there. And over time, that gets compressed in just like that spring, right? Just like that spring. Now, copper is fragile, right? It's fairly fragile. It's not a real strong metal, but it's a great conductor of electricity, which is why they use it here. So what you can do to tighten up that power cord again, I'll set the machine down. Actually, we'll do it top down. I think that would be the easiest way. Let me just protect the bed. Just rest the machine like this for a moment. So as we're looking down at this, like this, you see the cut. You just take a screwdriver like this, and you very gently slide it into that opening. And then you give it a gentle twist left and right, a little gentle twist left and right to make that flare out again. See that? Don't twist it far because, again, this is a fragile metal. Just give it a light little twist left and right. You can kind of see it flex a little bit. Watch it flex. See that? And now what we did is we opened that up. We caused it to flare open a little bit. You can see that's more open, more open, more open. And what that means is when we slide that power cord back on now, that looseness is going to disappear and it's going to be nice and tight on there. So it's not wiggly. It doesn't fall off. It doesn't do any of that stuff. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful because I know all of you have probably experienced that at one time or another. All right, let me tilt this little wonder back. There. We'll plug our power source back in again, which is going to be really, really tight now. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll be amazed how it just eliminates that wiggle factor straight away. Okay, so we've done leather and cotton so far. Let's move into something else now. Why don't we do some of this snakeskin stuff? I've shown this on other live streams. It's a snakeskin style material. It's got kind of almost like a felt woven background on it. And we're going to go through 2 layers of this with Sandy's Featherweight 221, which I think was born in 1941. Did anyone ever get any other insights? If anyone else got any other insights on the serial number for this machine, which I believe it was AF932901, something like that. AF932901. If anyone got any great insights, let me know about that. And if you own a Featherweight, I'll see if I can mail you one of these oversized manuals so that you can really, really see the content of that very, very easily. Okay? All right, turn our light back on. Let's try this snakeskin now. We got 2 layers of this, and we'll see how this little petite powerhouse does with snakeskin. It just mowed through leather like it was no big deal whatsoever. Let's see how it does on this snakeskin. Snakeskin can be kind of tricky. Oh, you know what else I didn't do? I did not do a quick calibration check to see how we did on this leather on the number of stitches per inch. So let me do that real quick. I'd just be curious to know. I'm going to set our caliper at 1 inch. And let me do a quick measurement here. So we got, seeing if you can see that on camera. Yep. Set that right in the end of the stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches per inch going through hardened leather. 7 stitches per inch at the longest setting on Sandy's Featherweight. 7 stitches per inch on hardened leather. That is really, really good. That's really, really good. I might still expand that spring a little bit for Sandy so she's got a little bit more latitude as far as adjusting that presser foot pressure. But the machine is doing a fabulous job of feeding that material and maintaining that stitch length integrity. Beautiful job. 7 stitches per inch. That's fabulous. Very, very good. All right, let's do snakeskin now and see how we do on this. Snakeskin material. And our setup, I think I mentioned this a couple times. Our setup is the Schmetz 9014 needle. And then we have our Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread is what we're using for sewing. All right, let's give this a go. Here we go. Yeah, very, very nice. Very, very nice. Yeah, I've got to work on spending more time on Facebook. I haven't posted, I've got hundreds and hundreds of progress pictures for recent machines that I presented to you, including Sandy's Featherweight. And I share all those pictures with the customer, but I have not been posting them on Facebook. I need to get back to that, don't I? I used to have some people that helped me on Facebook. Some of the leadership team, I would give them authorization to post things on Facebook. You remember Hans from Norway? Hans from Norway posted some really, really cool articles and some position papers on relating to sewing on the Cow Country Facebook page. And then Hans had to step away, so we lost him. I had given Olga from France permission to do that as well. And I think she may have posted a few things from France as well. But if any of the leadership team members have extra time, if you have extra time and you go, I'd love to be a moderator on the Facebook page as well and help you get these pictures posted, and maybe even write some articles, write some little posts about, sewing tips or ideas about this machine or whatever it is. If you want to put your toe in the pond of Facebook for Cow Country and you're part of the leadership team, let me know that. Let Susie know that, and we'll see if we can get you access to the Facebook page and you can help us, get going at that again. I've really stepped away from Facebook, unfortunately, in posting things. And we have a lot of people that look at that page from all around the world, and it's been kind of quiet. A lot of crickets chirping. So let me know if anyone's interested in that. Reach out to Susie, reach out to me, and we'll see if we can get you plugged in to help us out on Facebook as well. We're grateful for all your help on YouTube, but Facebook is really kind of a feeder for people to learn about us. And then there's a link on the Facebook page that takes them to this YouTube channel, and even to our Pinterest page as well. I don't do anything on Pinterest anymore either. So that's another area of opportunity. And I know all of you are busy, but if you want to take on a little bit of that as an extra, we would certainly be grateful. All right. So let's take a look, see how we did on this snakeskin. Very, very nice. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Let me take my reader glasses off so I can see the laptop screen. So here's our stitching on this snakeskin material. Once the camera focuses. Aha! There we go. Yeah, very, very nice. It's hard to hold it still, My camera's acting like it's Saturday. It is Saturday. He's like, I don't work on Saturdays. Yeah, you do. See if I can turn it like this and have a little bit more success. So there's our top stitching on these 2 layers of snakeskin. Really quite lovely stitching. Very, very nice. Stitch formation, the stitch spacing, the stitch integrity is spot on. Very, very nice. Trying to figure out where my finger, there's my finger. Trying to show it to you like this, and the camera just would not cooperate before. So let's turn it over, look at the lock stitching now. See how we did on the lock stitching with this these 2 layers of snakeskin material. There's our lock stitching. See if I can turn it like this and show it to you like this as well. You have to kind of hold your breath when you're doing this, because otherwise my hand will jiggle a little bit. But that's some really, really lovely stitching. The lock stitching, the top stitching as well. I'm seeing that the top stitching is a little bit more pronounced, which is telling me that we probably on snakeskin material, leather material, we have to adjust that tension just slightly to try to give that a little bit more punch. And if you're trying to get a little bit less emphasis on the top stitch, so you have a little bit better definition on that lock stitch, go ahead and just adjust that upper tension. Now, which way would you adjust it if you want to take away from the top and give to the bottom? If you want to have less emphasis on the top stitching and more emphasis on the lock stitching, how do we adjust that upper tension to do that? How do we adjust that upper tension? The stitching is very, very good. Very, very lovely stitching, especially on a trickier material like this with an exotic material like snakeskin. We're getting some lovely, lovely stitching from this featherweight. But how would you adjust the tension if you want to emphasize that lock stitch a little bit more and de-emphasize that top stitch? What will we do? How will we adjust that? Go ahead and type that in the live chat if you would. I'm going to grab a quick little tea break again, give us just a brief little intermission. And I want to thank everybody again for taking your valuable time on a Saturday to join us. We will resume sewing. We're going to be doing some sewing on cork. We're going to be sewing on some Amazon packing parchment paper. We're going to be sewing on denim. We're going to be sewing on canvas. What else do I have over there? I've got some vintage velvet as well. We'll be sewing on velvet a little bit. So a lot more sew-offs to come in just a little bit. By the silvery moon. This is Silver Moon, isn't it? Silver Moon. I love this song. Ha ha! I just don't know all the words. Somebody sing this for me. Come on, sing it. You know the words. Well, that was perfect timing. Perfect timing. I decided I just wanted to. I love that song. I don't know if any of you know that song. Isn't it called Silvery Moon or Silver Moon or something like that? And I don't know when it was written. I don't know any of the details on the song. If anyone wants to Google that and type it in the live chat for fun. But I didn't want to interrupt that song. I was really enjoying it. I was trying to hum and think of the words and that. And so I decided to jump right into this vintage velvet. And I did some of this holiday velvet material. I'll show you on the camera. Some of this holiday velvet material that was made in the US, was it? Or was it in China? I don't remember. It was made in China, and it's made out of 29% acrylic, 9% adhesion, and 62% polyester. Now, there's a recipe for disaster on a sewing machine, right? Acrylic is tough to sew. This adhesion type material that's designed to give it kind of a stiff backing on it. It's almost like a dried glue. And then the polyester, those are like three of the worst possible things to try to sew on a sewing machine. And that's why we do it, right? We do it because it's more difficult, not because it's easy. And Sandy's machine, you'll look at these and actually have that adhesion type background facing out so you can see it. Just a beautiful job. Beautiful job. Take a look at this stitching on this vintage velvet. There's our top stitching and our longer stitch, our shorter stitch that I kind of buzzed through during Silvery Moon. I got to put my camera screen down a little bit more. There we go. There's our top stitching. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, that's Silvery Moon stitching is what that is. That's Silvery Moon stitching. That's absolutely lovely. Lovely, lovely stitching. Just have to hold it level here. Yeah, we'll do some measurements on this as well. See how it did on this velvet material in maintaining the integrity of the stitch length. But that's really quite some lovely stitching. Let's look at it like this as well. Very, very nice. Now, if we turn it over and look at that lock stitching, that's that adhesion material. It gives it kind of a plastic backing almost. It's kind of a glue, dried, blah, blah, blah stuff. But we're basically punching through like glue, a gluey type adhesion material. And even on that, look at the stitching here. It's really quite lovely, quite spectacular. And you can actually see where that gluey adhesion type stuff creates the same look of when we punch through paper. You see that little tuft that it pushes through with punching through that adhesion? It creates almost like a little tuft in the material between the stitching. Let's go like this. It might be easier to see it this way. Yeah, you can't see the clarity of the stitch as much because of that adhesion backing, but when you're looking at it in person, you can even see on the lock stitching just how lovely those stitches are. I'll kind of turn it to the side a little bit like that, so that those little punch throughs don't distract you as much. So we just sewed vintage velvet, and we sewed through the acrylic and the polyester and the adhesion, the glue stuff. Yeah, we laid down some beautiful, beautiful stitching. Some really, really quite lovely stitching. So I'm going to throw this to the back as well. Now we've gone through hardened leather. We've gone through snakeskin. We've gone through vintage velvet. We've gone through cotton. What else is there? What else could I possibly sew? Well, it's funny you would ask that. I'm thinking it'd be a great time to do, how about some denim? Why don't we move into some denim now? I've got this heavy duty denim, 2 layers of it, but we're not going to insult this princess of singers by going through just 2 layers of denim. Nope. Oh, I forgot to measure. Hold on a second. Rewind. Let me do some quick measurements. See how we did in maintaining stitch length integrity. So this is our vintage velvet. We'll set our caliper at 1 inch. Right about there. We'll measure our long stitch. See how we did there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Interesting. So I'm not sure. Well, is that actually a stitch on the end? Hold on a second. Oh, that's the thread. Aha. That's the thread where I cut it. So I was measuring part of the thread. Duh. All right. Let me try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches per inch. I started to measure the little tail of the thread, and I thought we had 8 stitches per inch with a vintage velvet, but we got 7 on the longest setting, which is exactly what we want. Now I'm just eyeballing it as far as adjusting it for that shorter stitch. So I think I might have gone a little bit shorter than 10 to 12 stitches. I think I might have been closer to 14 stitches when I adjusted it, but let's see how we did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 stitches per inch on the vintage velvet, the 2 layers of vintage velvet on Sandy's machine. So our stitch length integrity going through a fairly wide field of materials already, from hardened leather to snakeskin to vintage velvet, now cotton. We're maintaining a real good stitch length integrity. And if you're new to sewing, or if you're just saying, so what's the big deal, man? Why are you so concerned about stitch length integrity? Well, because it tells us a bunch of things about the machine and how it's operating. What controls that stitch length is the feed dog feed and the presser foot pressure. The feed dogs and the pressure foot pressure is going to dictate, when you set your stitch length, whether you get what you want or whether you don't get what you want. So right now, our feed dogs and our pressure foot pressure are working very, very nicely together to give us what we want. So if you've ever done sewing and you'll set a stitch length and you get a stitch that's very different from that, you want to look right away at, are your feed dogs clearing the throat plate? Are they set too low? Is there lint down there that's obstructing their movement? Is your pressure foot pressure too light? If you've got a machine that has auto pressure foot pressure, you probably have some servicing needs where it's not, that mechanism that adjusts itself automatically is sticking and it's not adjusting to that material type. So there's a number of factors that play into it, but stitch length and stitch integrity is everything in sewing. If you don't have proper stitch length and what your machine is doing, if you don't have proper stitch integrity, how those stitches are presenting, the spacing, the formation, you got nothing. So you got to focus in on the specifics sometimes to get the outcomes that you want. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, or if you're equally passionate about that, give me a thumbs up or a smiley face in the live chat if you would. Give me a smiley face or a thumbs up. And that way I know that you're on the same sheet of music with me, okay? All right. So let's do this now. I'm going to put on a little bit more music. And drink a little bit of tea, and we'll jump into a cork sew off. The next thing I'm going to sew is cork, and that also has an adhesion backing on it, which is going to play havoc on our Schmetz 9014 needle. So I might have to, if you ever sew something that has like a glue base or a sticky backing to it, what you can do, and this is another DIY, you can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and gently, you'll want to unthread your needle, and you'll want to gently stroke down the sides of that needle all the way to the point to get that adhesion off of there. So after we do the cork sew off, I'm going to do that, and that way we can move into our final sew offs without that sticky residue on that needle. Okay? All right. If anyone recognizes this next song, type in the title into the live chat. Type in the title into the live chat. And if you want to share anything about the song, where you were, maybe you were in a pool hall, maybe you were dancing on a table. I have no idea, but it's a cool song. That's 6 layers, 6 layers of denim. Well, the song ended and I'm still trying to get the camera to focus, right? Oh, gee whiz. It's Saturday, but you're supposed to work on Saturday. Yes, Mr. Camera, go to work. Doggone it. All right, let me see if I can get the camera to focus. We just went through 6 layers of heavy grade denim with this featherweight. And again, those of you that look at the Petite Powerhouse and the Princess of Singers as a machine that can't do heavy duty, you couldn't be any more wrong. All of the innards on this featherweight are forged steel. It's an incredibly strong, powerful machine if it's running at the top of its game. Trying to get this to line up and actually be able to see these stitches. This camera is just being really naughty today. Let me do this. There we go. Now we're getting closer. I get that shadow when I try to get too close to the camera. Okay, I almost got it. The camera's almost saying, okay, I'll work. Pull it back. Maybe that'll help. Having trouble focusing on this denim for some reason. I don't know why. You try setting it down on the bed. Maybe that'll do it. We're doing it like this, facing down. Maybe that'll work better if I face the camera down. Yeah, that's working better facing it down. There we go. So some really, really good looking stitching. I'm hoping the camera is going to cooperate and show this off. The spacing, the formation of the stitching through these 6 layers of denim is really, really quite impressive. Really some beautiful, beautiful stitching. And again, we're looking at the top stitching right now, which is controlled by that bobbin case, right? And that's where if you buy an aftermarket bobbin case and you're having trouble with your top stitching, you want to right away be suspect of that bobbin case if your top stitching is looking kind of loopy or loose or undefined, then your bobbin case is not doing its job, right? So after a lot of effort, we're finally able to see the stitching a little bit on this denim. It's really quite spectacular stitching. From a further distance, the camera's like, yeah, I'll do that. But some really good looking stitching through quite a bit of denim. 6 layers of denim is probably thicker than most cuffs or hems or something like that. So yeah, it's doing quite a good job, quite a nice job. Let's look at our lock stitching on the back now. Here's our lock stitching on the back. And that looks really, really good. So that bump up on the upper tension really seems to have paid off. Got some really, really lovely looking lock stitching, maybe almost a little bit too lovely, where if we were sewing a bunch of denim, we might have to back that upper tension off just a little bit so we don't lose our definition on the top stitch, right? Because if you didn't know it, your upper tension and your bobbin case are in a constant tug of war. Your upper tension is pulling up to define this lock stitch. Your bobbin case is pulling down in order to define that top stitch. They're in a battle. They're in a battle. And they eventually have to become friends. Otherwise, your sewing doesn't look good. Right? Yeah. But they're getting along really well right now. That's a lovely, lovely lock stitch. Really quite lovely. Yeah, lovely lock stitch and a lovely top stitch as well. A little bit, I think we could have a little bit more emphasis on that top stitch, don't you? We would back off that upper tension just a little bit if we were sewing 6 layers of denim all day long, and it would give us even a more clarified stitch. But it's really a lovely stitch. I'm just being a little bit hypercritical. Yeah, very, very nice. So what have we sewn so far on this live stream? We've done 6 layers of denim. We've done 2 layers of snakeskin. We've done 2 layers of vintage velvet that is comprised of, I'm having to look at my little list, acrylic, 29% acrylic, 9% adhesion, which is a fancy way of saying glue, and 62% polyester. And this little petite powerhouse did a beautiful job on all of that. We also did hardened leather and laid down drop dead gorgeous stitching. And then we also did this pink 100% cotton from a fat quarter with a stiffener in between and laid down some gorgeous stitching. So if Spectrum blows it again and disconnects us, we've already seen this little girl do a wide field of sew-offs from denim to snakeskin to vintage velvet to hardened leather and even cotton. And she's done an absolutely brilliant job. And I hope it opens the eyes of those in the audience that have said, well, the Featherweight is a cute, delicate little machine, and it's designed for really, really light sewing, maybe like doing quilting squares or something like that. Well, all of you now are saying, holy cow, I can sew nearly anything on my Featherweight. And you would be right. as long as that machine is optimized and sewing at the top of her game and maintained properly, and you've got the right setup, you've got all those different factors in place, you can sew with your Featherweight like a heavy duty machine all day long, and it's not going to hurt your little girl. Your little girl is not going to get hurt. She's going to be fine. She's going to be perfect. Yeah. So, at any rate, I dwell on what I don't think we've sewn felt. This is an acrylic style felt that I have, an acrylic style felt that I don't think we've sewn felt forever. I used to sew felt more often. So I think we're going to sew a little bit of felt as well and see how this little girl does on this material before I knock the table over. And I'll put on a little bit more music so you can get acquainted with some new folks. And yeah, hang out, let your hair down, grab a cup of coffee. Y'all come back, you hear? Yes, that's from the Beverly Hillbillies. Yes, it is. All right, here we go. A little bit more music. Thought we were going to have music. All right, let me rewind. Hold on. I reached the end of the road. All right, I'm all set up for this felt sew off now. And I'm using these incredibly cool and cute and petite little clips that my dear friend from West Palm Beach, Florida, Paula Noel, sent me a long time ago because she saw me using these gargantuan things. And she said, Scott, you don't need to use something that big to hold something like this together, buddy. Don't use those gargantuan ones. Use that on your tarp on your car or something like that. Use these little ones that I sent you to hold more delicate things together. So we're going to use them on this felt, and I think it's going to work quite nicely. So let me buzz down this felt and listen to this wonderful Featherweight operate. She just has a silky smooth little whisper when she's humming along through this. And I've got the longer setting on the stitch set right now, so we'll be able to see that through this felt hopefully a little bit better. Okay? All right, here we go. Let me get that take-up arm all the way up. And with Paula Noel's help on these clips, I hope I can sew relatively straight. Relatively straight. All right, here we go. Ha! I didn't hit anything, Mom. Look. Ha! Yeah, those work quite nicely, don't they? They work quite nicely. They kept that material kind of tucked together so I could try to sew a straighter edge and not go off course as much. So thanks again to Paula for sharing those with me a number of years ago. Jiminy Crickets, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I continue to use these. I've broken a couple, but I've got enough still to get get the job done. So I'm grateful for that. Let me give these threads a cut, and then we'll look at our top stitching and our lock stitching on this acrylic style felt. I don't think I've shown a sew off on this for quite some time, maybe a couple years. So it's about time, right? It's about time. All right, let me get that there. Making sure I don't have any kind of a snag down there. All right, so here's our top stitching. Let's take a look at this. And I'll hold it down again so that hopefully it's a little bit clearer on the screen. Let's see here. Acrylic felt. See if we can do it like this. I'll point it down really far. Maybe if I do it like this. Those are some gorgeous stitches, folks. Let me see if I can go across and keep the camera to stay in focus. That is some gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Wow. Wow. Do any of you sew felt? Do you use felt in any projects, crafts, or other things like that? It's a little bit of a tricky material to sew, isn't it? But we've got the right needle in to do that. That universal needle's got that slightly rounded point, and it does quite a brilliant job, of giving us a lovely, lovely stitch delivery. See if we can look at it like this as well. I don't know if it's going to cooperate with us. Having trouble seeing my screen again. There we go. I think I got it. You see how it kind of sucks that stitch in a little bit, doesn't it? That felt with that woven type of composition, it kind of sucks that stitch in. You have to kind of pull it back to see it almost, don't you? Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful top stitch right there. Hopefully you were able to see that. I know that it's a little bit hard on this material to see it, even if I pull it kind of tight. If I pull it kind of tight like that, it's still a little bit hard to see it. You have to kind of pull it back, kind of, because it kind of pulls that stitch down with it, doesn't it? There it is. So a beautiful sew off with this acrylic style felt material. See if I can pull that back again. There she is. Folks, those stitches are spot on, aren't they? Those are spot on stitches through a woven material that's a little bit tricky to sew. Let's take a look at that lock stitching and see how we did on the back. Here's our lock stitching on the back now. See if I can hold it like that. Maybe that'll focus in. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. The spacing, the formation. We'll have to measure this and see if we maintained our stitch length integrity. But that's a beautiful lock stitch. Don't you agree? Really quite lovely. Very, very nice. All the way to the end. I don't even have to go to the end. You can already see the end. Yeah, very, very nice. And my edges, unlike when I usually do something like this, look at how even they are. They're pretty doggone even as far as the edge over here. And that's because of those clips that Paula gave me. It really held it nicely together, didn't it? So far in this live stream, if you're just joining us, we've done an acrylic style felt, 2 layers of that. It's a tricky material. It truly is. And we've also done 100% cotton with a stiffener. We've done a hardened leather material as well. Hardened leather. We did vintage velvet that has that gooey mess on the back that we had to punch through. We did snakeskin, and then we did 6 layers of heavy duty denim material as well. So our sew-off sandwich, as I refer to it, looks like this right about now. That's our sew-off sandwich. We could end this live stream right now, and I think you've got a real good impression of what a featherweight can do. And if you don't own a featherweight yet, you're probably watching the live stream and on your tablet or your phone, you're thumbing through Pinterest or eBay to see if you can get your mitts on one. Am I right or wrong? After I present a machine on this channel and I show you the greatness of it, a lot of you will go out. I know that Leland has done that. I know that a number of you have done that. And you'll scoop up that machine because all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't even consider that machine could do that. So that's really the big benefit of our classroom, is getting inspired and getting excited about what a sewing machine is capable of doing. This featherweight has already demonstrated greatness, but in a different way than Sandy's other machine is going to demonstrate greatness. Hopefully by Tuesday, if I can have this machine ready, I might pre-record it as a premiere, but this Opal 690Q is going to demonstrate greatness too. It's just going to be different. It's going to be a different type of greatness, probably through going through some of these stitches. I'm hoping I can do it as a live stream because then you'll be able to help me pick some of these stitches out that Sandy's other machine, this Opal 690Q by Husqvarna Viking, is able to do. It's great to have different tools in your toolbox, isn't it? You have a featherweight, you might have an Opal like this that Sandy has. She's got a couple of other machines, and they all bring something different to the table, don't they? That's really why someone will say to me, well, how many sewing machines is enough? I always say, one more, just one more, and that'll be enough. And then one more, and that'll be enough. You know what I'm saying? All right, let me put on just a little interlude music, and then we're going to see if we can sew some cork material. And then I'm going to have to carefully clean that needle off from that gluey stuff that's in between. This is the cork material we're going to be sewing. It's got a stickum on the back so you can stick it like up on a board or something like that. And we're going to be punching through 2 layers of cork material, and it's got a sticky adhesive in between. So this will be interesting to see how this featherweight does on this. You're talking about a thickness. Look at that thickness. You're talking about a thickness of probably 8 to 10 ounces equivalent if you were looking at leather. It might even be closer to 10 to 12 ounces. But that's a thick sew-off that we're going to be punching through this cork material with this featherweight in just a little bit, okay? I'll put on a little bit of music, get a little bit of tea, and then we'll move forward with this next sew-off. We're getting real close to the finish line, if y'all are wondering. Getting real close to the finish line. All right, I'm going to interrupt our music. I know y'all love ragtime, and ragtime really would be indicative of the period when the featherweight was introduced for sure, and when this machine, from as best as we can tell, 1941. And if you joined us a little bit late, that's okay. Um, but we were having a little bit of a dilemma because based on the serial number on this machine, if you look it up on Ismax, where most people will look up Singer serial numbers, it comes up as a class 15 sewing machine, not as a 221, not as a featherweight. If you want to take a look at that right now, if you didn't do it earlier with us, then look up the serial number AF, A like Apple, F like Foxtrot, 932901. If one of the leaders would be so kind as to type that serial number in the live chat again, A like Apple, F like Foxtrot, 932901. That's the serial number I showed you on the machine itself. I tilted the machine back. I showed you on the camera. That's what the way this machine is stamped, AF 932901. But it doesn't come up as a featherweight. It comes up as a class 15. So that's a little bit of a, I don't know, it's a little bit of an enigma, a little bit of a paradox that we have not been able to put our finger on. What happened? Was somebody sipping sauce at the Singer plant in Elizabethport, New Jersey? Were they sipping sauce and they stamped it the wrong way? I have no idea. But the closest thing I could find is at the bottom of that AF serial summary, at the very bottom of the AF serial summary on Ismax, there's a cluster of serial numbers that start with about 7 zeros or 6 zeros or whatever it was. And it gives a date of July 1st, 1941, with a production group size of only 1,749. So the best conclusion is this machine is somehow in that AF cluster at the bottom of that serial summary. But you look at it, you let us know what you think. If you're in the shadows right now, come out of the shadows and give us some insight, shine some light on this for us. And if you're in the shadows right now and you haven't clicked like yet on this live stream, I hope you've enjoyed it. I work real hard to put these together, and I always try to make it informational, educational, and also fun. And so hopefully you've enjoyed it, and it's worth a click of a like for you. Click like if you would, and that'll help this video. When it becomes a video from a live stream, it'll help it have better visibility. Okay? Thanks so much. A little bit more music, and then we're going to sew this cork material. All right, I'm going to pause that. And I just glanced at the screen on the laptop that I kind of look over my shoulder at to see if y'all are seeing what I'm seeing. I want to thank all of you that click like. It looks like we have over 1,000 likes now for this live stream. I'm grateful for that. I think this little princess of singers deserves those likes because she's done a brilliant job. I hope you agree. She's done quite a brilliant job of going through a wide field of materials and not even blinking. I mean, she just goes through it and hits it like a hammer, doesn't she? Now we're going to try this cork material. I did not test this off camera, so this may be a fail. This may be a success. We'll see. But it's probably the equivalent of about 12 ounces of thickness. 12 ounces of thickness would translate to be, see if I can tell you with the caliper, about 4 millimeters thickness. About 4 millimeters thickness is what we're looking at. That's a thick sew off. That's thicker than the leather that we just sewed. And anyone that's ever, maybe none of you have ever tried to sew cork before. Maybe I'm just a weirdo for trying it, but I saw this in my materials and I thought, I'm going to sew cork with this featherweight and see how she does. So let's do that now. You can listen to her work with that 0.4 amp motor. And I'm hoping she just knocks it out of the ballpark and gives us some beautiful stitching. All right, let me give this a go. I'm going to have quiet in the workshop so you can hear this this little sweetheart operate. And again, this is This is Sandy's machine from London, not England. I've presented to you machines from London, England before, but this is from London, Kentucky. So if anyone wants to, for kicks and giggles, if you want to Google London, Kentucky, blah, blah, blah. If you want to Google London, Kentucky and type something interesting, maybe they're famous for something. Maybe there's something interesting in that AI search that'll pop up and says, yeah, London, Kentucky has this population and they're famous for, I don't know what they're famous for, but you could type that in the live chat just for fun. So when someone later watches this as a video on this channel, they're going to be like, I didn't know that about London, Kentucky. And it's possible they never heard of London, Kentucky before. London, Kentucky from us in the mountains is about, how far is it, Susie? About an hour? I think it's about an hour from us, approximately. Hour northeast, maybe, something like that. But yeah, somebody do that for fun if you would. Now let's see if we can get through this cork material. All right. Get my big old foot on that little button and adjust the camera. See if we get nice and close. I look at my screen. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, let's give this a go. Little pieces of that cork are actually falling off. See that? Like it's like crumbling a little bit. All right, let's see how we did. There's our top stitching. I think we got a little bit of a compression of stitch. Cork is a more difficult material to feed, especially cork as thick as this. If you look at the thickness of that again, our stitching looks really good. I'm going to show it to you nice and close. But it looks like when I use that caliper to measure on the longest setting, which is where we are right now, where we would expect to get 6 to 7 stitches per inch, I'm guessing we're going to be closer to 8, maybe 9, because it's a little bit harder to feed this material over those feed dogs and underneath that presser foot. Let's see how we did. Let's see here. Give that a clip. Keep this orientated. That's our top stitching. I'm just going to check our time too. Looks like we've been running about 2 hours and 11 minutes. We're going to do this cork sew off, and I'm going to be adventurous. What I would recommend if you sew a material like this that has that adhesive in between, that you clean off the needle, but we're not going to do that because we're getting tight on time. I'm going to see if I can venture right into our final sew off in a circle with a tire. You'll see what I mean. And then we'll wrap up this live stream. And I want to thank everybody. I'm going after a fruit fly right now. I want to thank everybody for taking your valuable time on a Saturday to join us. I want to thank the leadership team for taking such great care of the family. I want to thank Paula for these clips that I use to get good sew-offs on that acrylic felt material. Yeah, but right now let's look at this cork, see how we did. It should be our top stitching there. Yep, that's our top stitching. So this is our top stitching on this cork material. We'll see how we did on that. Look over my shoulder at my little laptop screen. It's still thinking about focusing. It's almost focusing. Let me do it like this maybe. So I'm going to give you all a challenge. If you never, ever, ever, ever sewed, not soaked, if you never, ever sewed cork material like it would use on a board on your sewing machine, you got to try it. Just like you have to try sewing Amazon packing parchment paper. That was another sew-off I had ready, which we could probably still pull off. But a beautiful job with this cork material. It's kind of a crumbly material. Maybe it's older cork or something. But this little featherweight that belongs to Sandy from London, Kentucky, did just a fabulous job. Look at that stitching. See if we can get it to cooperate this way as well. And look at the thickness of that again from the side. That is the thick of thick, folks. And cork material is a tricky material to sew. You'll realize that when you try it at home. Now, if we turn it over, let's look at that lock stitching. How do we do on that? You figure that needle has to sweep down and then go through that gummy glue in between and then pull that thread back up. And it did a brilliant job. Look at that stitching. That's our lock stitching. And before I send this machine back to Sandy, yes, I'm going to replace the needle. I will. I'm not going to give her a gummy, gluey needle. I won't. So that's some beautiful stitching, folks, through 2 layers of cork material. And why would you want to sew cork? I don't know, because it's kind of cool. You could probably do craft projects with cork, maybe do some free motion quilting on cork and get some really cool results from that. And you may not be sewing as thick as this, but that's okay. That's all right. Yeah. Beautiful sew off. So again, recapping real fast before I do our final sew off, which is going to be sewing in a circle, but it's going to be a little bit of different twist on that. We just did 2 layers of cork material, about almost 4 millimeters thick. We did 6 layers of denim. We did 2 layers of snakeskin. We did this vintage velvet material, which has that acrylic glue. Who knows? It probably has road tar in it too. We went through that and got some beautiful results. We did this hardened leather as well that would be used in equestrian type things with horses. We did cotton, and then we did this acrylic felt material as well, all in this live stream. You can't fake it in a live stream, folks. That's what we've done. And this little featherweight that came in barely able to turn and was making an awful grinding sound when you would manually turn it is just operating better than, silky smooth right now. And she's got renewed power and greatness that is just going to delight Sandy from London, Kentucky. So the final sew off I'm going to do, I usually sew in a circle, right? Using leather. Don't ask me why. Maybe I was thinking about donuts. But I decided to cut the center out. So I have to sew around the edges when I'm doing this. And if I miss, I don't have any leather to give me a little bit of padding. So I'm going to see if I can do the final sew off. I'll put some fun music on while we're doing that. And I normally I would clean off the needle using a Q-tip swab and rubbing alcohol. We're just going to race to the finish and see how we do. Okay. But thanks again for everybody attending today. Thanks to the leaders. Yeah, let's get this done. What do I got there? There it is. Got like an extra little loopy thing going on here. That cork must have, that cork kind of messed around with me a little bit. Look at that extra little loop. So what you do in an instance like this is I'm going to remove our bobbin case real quick. And we'll get rid of that little loop. There we go. So again, notice when I've got this bobbin case, it would be in like this, right? When it's turning, imagine it turning like this. It's going to be turning clockwise. Turning clockwise. See that? That way you know you got it right. Now, right now, if you look at my take-up arm right here, my take-up arm is real low. You don't want to try to insert that bobbin case when that take-up arm is real low. You don't want to do that. Hold on a second. I'm dropping everything. Hold on a second. There we go. Yeah, I totally took my bobbin out. So this is an opportunity since my bobbin kind of came out of the bobbin case. It's my opportunity. I was going to do the needle, but now I'll do a quick little DIY. Just a quick little DIY on the bobbin case. I'm going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And be careful if you have this near your paint on your machine. Rubbing alcohol, will eat away at that clear coat real quick. You have to neutralize it like I've shown you with oil. I'm just going to swab the inside of our bobbin case real quick. Part of the reason that thread may have gotten caught with that cork is that cork has got a lot of glue in it, and then that glue gets on the end of the needle. So we're going to at least clean out our bobbin case. You can see there's a little bit of dirt on there. Then I'm going to put just a tiny little drop of oil inside of your bobbin case, and then we'll swab that around as well. You also want to swab what the bobbin attaches to right there on the outside so it spins real nicely and easily. I always go in as well a little bit to get that inside area where it mounts to the machine. Now that we've got it like that. Oh, and I didn't show you. That's what we just got off of it right there. So machines get dirty quick, don't they? They get dirty real quick. So with the thread over the top, you're going to slide it into the bobbin case. Look for that little slat opening. There it is. Slide it in that slat, draw it down through that tension spring. And you see it's turning clockwise, so I know we have it right. Now, before we try to insert this bobbin case, we're going to bring our take-up arm all the way to the highest position, which is what I just did. And then you're going to insert it in like this with your opening to the top. And just get it snap into place. There we go. Nice little snap sound. Bring your thread up. All right, now we're finally going to do our final sew off. Sewing in a circle. So we'll see you next time. I'm hoping to have this Opal by Husqvarna Viking that also belongs to Sandy. I'm hoping to have it ready by this Tuesday. I would prefer to do it as a live stream if I can. And that way you all can chime in. And that's a huge circle. Look at that sucker. It's all the way, it's like up against the pillar. I think I cut it too big, but that's okay. All right, I'll do my best to sew in a circle with this donut style leather thing and find some fun music to put on. Y'all take care. God bless you. And we'll see you next time, hopefully on Tuesday if I'm ready. With this Opal 690Q. If you want to do some research before, learn a little bit more about this machine that belongs to Sandy as well, just like this Featherweight, it is the Opal, OPAL, by Husqvarna Viking, and it's the model 690Q, like Quebec, 690Q. That way you'll be real smart on this machine before we get together next time. All right, I need some fun music. You never can go wrong with Irish music. Am I right? A little bit of Irish music, maybe. I'm going to interrupt the music just to say real quick. This is not as dense of a leather as that hardened leather that we did during the live stream, but it is genuine cowhide. It's probably about 3 to 4 ounces of cowhide. And just take a look at this stitching. I'm just going to spin it like a wheel like this. And you can look at that. That's our top stitching. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching that Sandy's Featherweight just laid down on this final sew off. Really quite lovely, quite lovely. I kind of like this little opening. I kind of steer the leather a little bit more. I don't have to grab it on the outside. And here's our lock stitching as well. Equally gorgeous lock stitching on this leather also. Hopefully you can see that okay in the shot. So between the sewing a circle on genuine cowhide, we also did the denim 6 layers. We did this cork material. We did the snake skin. We did the hardened leather. We did the vintage velvet. We did the cotton. And we also did this felt material as well. We wrap up the live stream with something that looks like that. If you're not impressed, well, go and talk to somebody. You probably need help because this is impressive. What a great little machine. And she is back to greatness again. God bless everybody. Take care.